I don't know what the stats were. The game just ended. I haven't looked at the stats, so I don't know Stetson Bennett's completion percentage, touchdowns, turnovers, rushing yards, defensive stats. I don't know any of that. But I watched the game, and I don't care what the stats are. It was not good. Georgia looked absolutely horrible. Now, I hope that this is just like that one game over the course of the season that you see a lot of great teams, for whatever reason, struggle one particular. I hope that's what this is, because this was worse than the Samford game. I guess this was worse than the Samford game. Here's a lot of the same problems we had in this game, we had in the Samford game. Samford's a lot worse. Samford's an FCS team. Kent State's a Group of 5 team and a decent one. They're not afraid of playing Power 5 teams. I mean, look at Kent State's schedule. This is the third Power 5 game Kent State has played this year. And for whatever reason, Georgia showed up today and was not ready to play. And really, Georgia's lucky to get out of this game with a win, in all honesty. In all honesty, just the overall amount of talent that Georgia has is the only reason Georgia won this game. It wasn't preparation or scheme or philosophy or execution or play calling or anything like that won this game for Georgia. If it wasn't for the fact that Georgia is just supremely more talented in every single position than Kent State, they'd have lost today. And the way that they played, they really didn't deserve to win. This was... I talk about this on the Your Season is Over video. I talk about teams that lost, but then I also do a separate list where I talk about teams that won that look bad. That's Georgia. They'll be on that list on Sunday. They did not look good. This might be the worst game I've seen Georgia play. This is the worst game I've seen Georgia play in a long time. This is worse than any game they played last year, for sure. You go back to 2020. We lost to Alabama, but Alabama was the eventual national champion. And Georgia played good in the first half of that game. It played bad in the second half, but not this bad. We lost to Florida that year too, but Florida was a good team in 2020. You go back to 2019, we got blown out by LSU, but we know how good they were. We lost to South Carolina wasn't it 2019? When we lost at home to South Carolina. South Carolina was a horrible team. And Georgia came out. Jake Fromm was the quarterback. Fromm had 4 turnovers in that game. The defense only gave up 1 touchdown, but we still lost. Today was the worst game I've seen Georgia play since that day in 2019. And we're extremely lucky to get out of this game with a win. People have already asked me, do you think Kirby Smart likes that? No, I don't think he likes it. I do think Kirby Smart obviously will use this game as motivation as we continue on through the remainder of the season, because let's be honest, regardless of what happened here today against Kent State, Georgia is going to be 20 or 30 point favorites in their next 3 games. Georgia's next 3 games are Mizzou, Auburn, and Vandy. 3 horrible teams. Are you watching the Mizzou-Auburn game? It's absolutely horrible. It's the cure for insomnia. These are the 2 worst offenses in the SEC, I'm convinced. It's god-awful. Speaking of games that are going on, Michigan starting to pull away from Maryland. That game was tight through 3 quarters. Michigan pulling away. And if you're not doing anything else right now, you better be watching the end of this Clemson-Wake Forest game. It's a commercial right now, but this Clemson-Wake Forest game is unbelievable. Unless something has changed in the last minute or 2 since I started this video, Wake Forest is up 38-35 over Clemson, but Clemson is driving. About 5 minutes to go in the game. That's going to be a hell of an ending. I got to hurry this video up so I can watch it. But Georgia looked absolutely horrible today. There's no way around it. So yeah, I'm sure Kirby and the coaches will try to use this game as some sort of motivation going forward. I don't want to hear the excuse about a noon game. Last week was a noon game, and we showed up ready to go on the road against South Carolina. But today was not the day. Stetson Bennett was rusty. Ladd McConkey had 2 turnovers and multiple drops in the first quarter of the game alone. The defense, sloppy tackling, which is something you don't see from a Georgia defense ever. Even if you go back and look at some of the bad games Georgia's played over the last few years, it's been mostly bad offensively. You very rarely see a Georgia defense play as bad as they played today. Missed tackles, missed assignments, players out of position, not good on either side of the ball. On either side of the ball. And Georgia's extremely lucky to get away from this thing with a win. This could have been an embarrassing, humiliating loss for Georgia. And shout out to Kent State. Shout out to Kent State. This is a benefit for these teams like Kent State who schedule 2 and 3 Power 5 teams a year, right? They get used to playing these teams. Kent State was not intimidated to come into Sanford Stadium. They were not intimidated because Georgia had a number 1 next to their name on ESPN or wherever the rankings are. They were not intimidated because Georgia's bigger or faster. None of that intimidated Kent State. They came out ready to play. Georgia did not. And you hate to see Kent State lose, really. I mean, they gave it all they had and should have won this game, probably. I'm a Georgia fan, obviously, so I'll take the win. But, man, this was not good. This was not good at all. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I've been I live streamed the game for 3.5 hours, so I've seen all the troll comments already. I can't argue with you. Georgia looked terrible. Georgia looked awful. I mean, there's no way around it. No way around it. The only positive I can take from this is that, yes, Georgia looked awful. I haven't seen them play this bad in 3 years, but they won by 20 points or whatever it ended up being, 17, whatever it was. I've seen a lot of Georgia teams play this bad and lose to bad teams in the past. So I'll take the win over a loss, but Georgia's got to stop doing this. This is kind of this was a Mark Richt game. This was a Mark Richt game. Georgia did this time and time again under Mark Richt, play down to their competition, whether it was a group of 5 team, a terrible South Carolina team, a terrible Vandy team, whatever the case. I saw Mark Richt do this year after year after year after year after year. Thought we had moved past that, and I still hope we have, and that this is just an anomaly, right? You gotta beat these teams in the first half, and Georgia didn't do that today. You've got to beat the will to play out of them in the first half. That's what you've got to do to bad teams, and Georgia didn't do that today. I'm disappointed. I expect a much better result out of Georgia over the next 3 weeks, even though we're playing 3 bad teams in a row.